What up, everybody? Blake the Scholar Magic here. What's up? Welcome back. I have some really nice cards to show you today, especially a new card coming from the new Tarkir set, Dragonstorm. It looks really promising, especially with this new dragon that's coming out, so let's read it. Stormscale Scion, 4 generic mana, 2 red. Creature dragon, flying, nice. Other dragons you control get 1/1, so it's a lure to our other dragons. Give a little buff. Okay, sweet. Storm. When you cast a spell, copy it for each spell cast before it this turn. Copies become tokens. Wow, didn't someone say this was like a mistaken type of mechanic? I think one of the, creators of Magic or one of the CEOs thought that this was just kind of a busted mechanic of Storm. And I mean, yeah, if we cast just 2 spells prior to casting this on a single turn, then we're going to get 2 additional copies of the Stormscale Scion, and they'll all see each other. They'll give each other a nice little buff there. And we'll all of a sudden, for the cost of 6, have 3 6/6s on the battlefield. And then it's going to be pumping up our other dragons too. So it's just a really nice kind of addition to the dragons that we have here already. So I'm going to be sharing a deck with you, and I think it's kind of just a nice one if you're getting into dragons. I feel like you kind of are pulled to a couple different directions in terms of like, well, if you want to play red green, for instance, I mean, you can play the 5-color Ur Dragon. That's totally cool. I mean, that's cool if you want to do it. I just like Maria. I just like the fact of playing like an Urza's Incubator and building around that card, and just all the cost reductions and kind of card advantage that you get with Mary. I thought she was a good choice to kind of lead the dragon army. So on Moxfield, if you want to look this one up, it's Tarkir Dragonstorm Gruul Dragon Guide. And it features, of course, our commander, Mary the Scholar of Antiquity. This is a 1 generic, 1 red, 1 green, legendary creature, elf artificer. Tap an untapped non-token artifact you control, add green. Probably a good point about this is not like Urza, where you can, Urza can tap, like, for instance, treasures and such, the token artifacts for mana as well. Mary is restricted to non-tokens only. So, for instance, Mary would not be able to tap treasures for mana. However, she would be able to tap, for instance, like a Blade of Selves for mana, which is just fantastic. I mean, these artifacts on their own would just sit on the battlefield. Of course, they bring those abilities once they're equipped, but in other words, they don't have any like abilities to be tapped for mana under any circumstance. But with Maria, they do. So that's nice to turn those into forests, and that's exactly what our girl does here. Addition to that, she'll also take those same 2 non-token artifacts. If you tap them down at once using that ability, you'll get to impulse or look at the top card of your library and put it into exile and play it for that turn only. It will be put in exile permanently at the end of your turn. So it's just a sweet commander. Of course, we love Maria. Everybody does. It's truly a wonder. And I thought it would be very nice just to kind of show you the dragons first. So let's just get into the dragons, and then I'll enable the tags to see how they all fit together. But we can kind of get an idea what dragons offer. They can be a wide tribe in that they have certain cards like the Dragon Broodmother that will let us go wide with dragons, and there's also dragons that like to see other dragons on the battlefield as well. Let's just get in, for instance, like to the invasion of Tarkir, for instance. This is a battle, and you can see this thing, prima facie, is just going to see dragons in your hand and deal 2 damage plus the amount of dragons that you want to reveal in your hand. And that's nice on face value for 2 mana. And then for the 4, dealing 4 damage to the battle, you turn it over into the Defiant Thundermaw. And you can see that this dragon loves to see other dragons attack. Simply put, it loves to see itself attack. And of course, dragons mostly have flying. That kind of makes sense. They are, dragons. So flying is a very powerful characteristic of Magic. Of course, growing up playing Magic, we know that flying is just very good. Like if you just had an angel deck when you're playing in the Urza block, I mean, those are just really good cards. Like just that flying mechanic. Like if we see flying, I mean, that's a good keyword, and all the dragons have it. So this one has flying and trample. And then whenever a dragon will attack, then we're also just dealing 2 damage to any target for each of those dragons that does attack. So it just kind of stacks on itself. It just loves to see other dragons, and that's kind of what we're working with here. They're definitely a taller tribe mostly, meaning that they're kind of high-costed cards. and they kind of just sit there. They're kind of fat asses to a degree. They really are. They're kind of got the big fat booties, and they don't usually have haste. Some of them do, but most of them just kind of sit on the battlefield, and they're high costed, and they're just very powerful cards when they do get cooking, right? This is a perfect example of that. Your Ancient Copper Dragon is that high costed card, is 6 mana total. It's an Elder Dragon flying. Whenever Ancient Copper Dragon deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. You create a number of treasure tokens equal to the result. So if you roll a d20, you get 20 treasure tokens upon dealing combat damage. If you roll a 1, you get 1 treasure. On average, you should get about 10. So just for connecting, that's just an amazing abundance of mana. It's just like really opens up your game plan. That's just like that's like almost time walking. Like you usually tap that much mana like when you're really going off, right? And then all of a sudden you have access to 10 more of it, like through 10 treasures. That's just kind of insane. And all it has to do is connect with your opponent. It's a big chunky 6/5 flyer. But the thing, it will sit, right? So we have to kind of think of creative ways to get our dragons going, and so make sure that they're just not sitting there and being like exposed to removal. So let's just get into some of the sweet dragons, and you'll all notice that most of them have like probably 6 costing cast or more. This one's going to give double strike to all your other dragons, including itself. It has flying and trample. It's a great, win con. Balefire Dragon is just a removal on a stick, meaning it's just a body that can like perpetually destroy your opponent's creatures. As long as it connects in the air, it just has to deal damage to an opponent, and then it will deal its damage to all the creatures that opponent controls. It's just fantastic. I really got sold on this card from the nitpicking nerds. They were just very adamant about this card, and I think I tried it out once, and I was like, I don't know if I was very pleased with it. But then I started playing with it more, and I was like, oh, this card is just bonkers. And I think you just kind of have to enable it, right? You have to kind of get it cooking to a degree. Also, you notice none of these cards have haste, so it is kind of important for us to provide hasty enablers in our deck. Boneheart Dracosaur is that very nice value orientated card, not the highest amount of stats, but it just kind of gets you looks, right? It gets you those 2 cards on your upkeep. You could get a treasure and a creature from that depending on the roll, so it's a nice one. Also, Cavern Horde Dragon from the Lord of the Rings set. I like this because it could be reduced by the amount of artifacts that like an opponent controls. It has haste, which is nice. And when it connects with that particular opponent that you deal combat damage to, you get to create an amount of treasure tokens equal to the number of artifacts that the player controls. A very cool effect. Then we have the Dragonborn Champion, which will just draw us cards through dealing that 5 damage, increments of 5 damage, which is nice. It has 5 power itself. So whenever a source deals 5 damage, we draw, so that's very nice. This is the one I was talking about, like the go wide kind of aspects with dragons. And Dragon Broodmother is definitely that glue, and it just kind of helps some of the other dragons. Of course, this would be very good with the Invasion of Tarkir. It's going to be very good with our Scourge of Alkus. Just creating an additional dragon on each of your opponent's upkeep is just nice, and you can scale it up too. That can have Devour. So as a token comes into play, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. It comes into play with that twice that many encounters on it. So it can eat up the third dragon, can eat up the other 2, and then it's coming along a little bit stronger, right? So it's just an interesting card. Obviously, I think we just want to keep the dragons because we're going to have ways to like buff them up, and we're going to definitely be happy about having additional dragons on the battlefield. Here's Dragonhawk's Fake Tempest, and also just kind of a slower card, but it does have that enter the battlefield trigger, which is really nice. So depending on how many creatures with power 4 or greater you have, when this enters, you get to exile the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creatures you control with X, so we'll see itself. You could exile a single card and play it till the end of the turn. If you had more creatures with 4 power or greater, you could exile additional cards. And then at the beginning of your next end step, Dragonhawk deals 2 damage to each opponent for each of those cards that are still exiled. And Marriott's kind of interesting too, because I think it's from those cards, but yeah, I was just thinking because Marriott exiles cards too, but it's just from those cards. So yeah, that's a nice little effect there. So you get a little damage from it as well. Is it to all opponents or just to each opponent? Nice. Yeah, that's really good. And then you have Dragon Lord Atarka as well. Nice. And I have this in the thumbnail. This is a big bad boy, guys. 8/8 here. and it's 5 generic red, red green, so not the cheapest cost, but hey, I think it's like kind of your first go. Like if we got a Dragonlord or a Tarkir, we're dropping the Atarka, and then we're dropping the Great Henge, either the same turn or the next turn. Like we're just enabling all those really strong strategies with high power creatures. So yeah, Dragonlord Atarka is just a really nice big body, flying trample, 8/8, and then it comes on the battlefield and does 5 damage divided amongst as many creatures or planeswalkers your opponents control. Here's your Goldspan Dragon, and this is just a nice one that loves to like kind of accelerate us. It does have haste, and so when it attacks, it does create a treasure, and that treasure can produce 2 mana instead of just 1 when it's sacrificed. So that's a really nice card as well. And of course, when it gets targeted by a spell or attacks, it creates a treasure. And here's the Hellkite Charger. This is going to go well. I think this is going to go probably mostly the best, like with your, let's see here, the Scourge of the Throne. So Scourge of the Throne basically will give you an additional combat if you're attacking the player with highest life total. And why this goes well with Hellkite Chargers. So for instance, imagine we have like an old Gnawbone or an Ancient Copper Dragon. If we just have that old Gnawbone and we're swinging in with, like, for instance, the Scourge of the Throne and like a Hellkite Charger, I mean, that's just 10 damage to get her already. And if we had an old Gnawbone, that's 10 treasures to be produced, and we'll get that extra combat through the Scourge of the Throne. Now, when we go to our extra combat, all our creatures will untap and we'll move to attack. And when this card attacks once more, we can pay 7 into it and then have an additional combat, and that's an infinite loop of attacks. And if the opponent cannot deal with those flyers, they die, all of them. So it's just a really kind of nice little thing how these 2 cards, especially like the Hellkite Charger, Scourge of the Throne, and our Ancient Gnawbone and Ancient Copper Dragon are going to work together quite nicely. Even our Savage Ventmaw is going to get onto that action too. Obviously the thing is about this card is it's based on attacks. It's not like you can do it after, it's not after the attack. So even though if we have like 30 treasures, after we swing, if this thing already attacked and we're not attacking again, you'll have to wait till next turn to kind of get into that loop. But the Scourge of the Throne says, hey, we're gonna open this up, and we're gonna attack for the first time each turn, and we're gonna swing in, and we're gonna have a mana enabler. And if we're attacking the player with the most life or tied for the most life, we're gonna tap all our attacking creatures, and there will be an additional combat phase. So there you go. So that's a cool one. I love that. It's just nice to kind of end games and be rewarded for playing your high costed cards and kind of, setting up for that. Additionally, Cloth is also very good. Cloth could not pay into those abilities, though Cloth basically you see the power of all the creatures that is attacking with it and add that much mana to your mana pool, and you won't lose it as the steps and phases end. So till your end of your turn. So basically, it will pay for itself as long as you're attacking with like another 3-power creature, right? It produces 7 mana. And with Cloth, then you can cast additional spells with that mana. So we're getting the vibes that we're playing some very high costed cards. They're very tall, they have very powerful, kind of locking out abilities, and they just kind of love to see each other. They really do. They love other dragons. These dragons just love other dragons. What can I tell you? So here's the Lathless. And Lathless is just very good. Create a 5/5 red dragon as long as you have more non-token dragons that are in the battlefield. Fantastic, right? So we just love that. Big 6/6 flyer. Old Gnawbone. And probably has to be like probably the best dragon in our deck. When have you plopped down an old Gnawbone and not been unhappy with it? You have the old Gnawbone coming down, and then you're swinging in, and you're just creating that many treasures depending on how much damage you dealt. It's just amazing. What an amazing card this is. Really frustrating to play against too. You see an old Gnawbone and you have no answer for it. It's just an awful feeling, just someone slams an old Gnawbone. It's like, oh my God, can anyone deal with that? Nasty guy. We talked about the 7 Savage Vent Maw. This thing's nice because it's not like exclusive to abilities. It just adds 6 and you can just spend it on anything as long as it attacks. This is actually in standard right now, Savage Vent Maw. Scourge of the Throne, that is just a really good one too, guys. I mean, yeah, we kind of just went over that, and it's just a nice enabler for our extra attacks. Scourge of Valkus, this is going to be kind of that like alternate win condition where we're just dropping like a ton of dragons, maybe have like a dragon brood mother on the battlefield and this thing, and maybe a dragon tempest, and then we're going to win through like a real cool way of just draining the opponents and making lots of like little dragons and such. Yeah, so there's Valkus will, as dragons enter, it will see how many other dragons are on the battlefield, including itself, and deal damage to a target, X damage to a target, right? It could also pump itself up too for that 1 red. Pretty cool. Stormscale Scion, this is a new card from Dragonstorm, and we just love it. It's going to fit in so well here. It's going to be a great follow-up for, one of our big turns. It's going to be like that next turn when we're have like, lots of mana available in Maria. Maybe we have like 10 mana available. We play like 2 or 3 spells before this, and then we drop like a whole bunch of dragons on the battlefield at once. It's going to be amazing. Terror of the Peaks, also just going to love to see creatures coming on the battlefield, whether they're tall, whether they're little. They just like to see this. And we're playing like a Blade of Selves too, which would be very cool. I think a Blade of Selves on a Scourge or Terror of the Peaks would be very cool. It'd just be a very nice interaction to, maybe end game sooner than later. Just the fact that you had these flyers, myriading into your opponents, and like a Scourge, seeing itself and seeing the other dragons that are created, and just like stacking damage. It would be very nice. So here is the Terror of the Peaks, and this one is that one that's going to love to see other creatures enter the battlefield. Based on that power, they're going to deal damage to a target. It's also just a 5/4 flyer, so that's nice. And then the Twin Flame Tyrant, this one's going up in price. It's probably going to be like even more after this video. Obviously, just dealing double damage is great. It's got decent stats. It's a flyer. When it swings, and it connects, it's just basically 6 damage, right, instead of 3. And then this is just the source of any kind. So even that pain damage that, for instance, a Scourge of Valkus would do, that's just doubled. I mean, it's just really incredible stuff. I mean, you can just get some really nice interactions here. You can just see that. Tyrant's Familiar is that really good 1-for-1 like kind of removal card that's like perpetual, because we'll have Mary on the battlefield when this thing comes down. It will have that 7/7 stat. It has haste, so that's just 7 damage in the air and then 7 damage to a creature. So you get all those things that are really nice on a creature. You get a big body that does stuff immediately, and also interacts with your opponents and removes things. So it's an A+ card for 73 cents. Utvara Hellkite, this is probably our highest costed dragon in the deck. So it is on the pricier side, but this would be a very nice like Doors of Durin hit for us, where we're getting it in there for like a very appropriately and fast time clock, and then we're casting other dragons and having them all attack, and then creating lots of dragons at once. So that's going to be a very cool thing. Of course, it won't get the dragon from the Doors of Durin because it will already be attacking through the Doors of Durin. That is like a distinguishing thing. But of course, it's just nice to have on the battlefield sooner than later. And then Xenagos is kind of like that honorary dragon. This could like probably be your commander, right? Xenagos. And I've seen that like Xenagos like helming a deck with like old Gnawbones and Copper Dragons and all those things that love to like hit fast and hard. So this is a very appropriate card for the deck. It's not a dragon, that's for sure, but it's just going to give our dragons haste. When we move to combat, it's going to give another target creature will gain X haste and gets XX, where X is that creature's power. It's fantastic. And we love that. We really do. And you can see how that's really good with an old Gnawbone too, right? So those are the dragons, and I'll just put on the tags now, so you can enable tags with this if that's like kind of like how you like to experience decks on Moxfield. This one I did in particular put a little extra work, and I enabled the tags. So hit me with a subscribe if you enjoy the tags. I'd appreciate it. Or like or share with your friends, whatever. Comment on the video. 300 subscribers means I'm going to be sending some stuff. I'm going to be sending you some cards, including some new Jumpstart cards like Ophelia. I've been collecting some other nice Death Touch full arts to kind of get you excited about that commander. Some nice lands, some nice triomes, for instance. And I'll probably throw in like a dragon or two. Maybe you like one of the dragons that you see on this video. We'll probably throw it in. I'll invest a little into it. I'll get into the wallet. Maybe I'll send you a Goldspan dragon, for instance, if that's something that you're into. Maybe not an ancient copper dragon, but but hey, whatever. We'll see. Maybe on our 1,000 subscriber ship, we'll do the ancient copper dragon. Yeah, why not? You can hold me to that. Yeah, it'll be that version too. That's sick. So here's the Ancient Copper Dragon, and this is our ramp suite. So these are all the dragons that are kind of going to ramp us, right? Or just all the things that are going to give us additional mana. So we have some really nice options here. You can see there's some really nice cards here, and they all kind of work nicely together. So you have a nice little ramp suite there. Of course, Maria always is going to see these 2 cosset artifacts as basically ramp too. So you can consider those kind of ramp as well. So these are just some nice reducers. Like Urza's Incubator's got to be like the top, right? For dragons and just tribal synergies. And the fact that you could tap this for mana too is very good. The fact that we can name dragon and have our dragons cost 2 generic less mana to cast is very good. Because then we can drop like 2 dragons, big dragons on a turn cycle, which is much better than just 1. So we love that. Of course, we even get to play Ruby Medallion and Emerald Medallion because we have a lot of red and green spells in this deck. So maybe if we were just doing more vehicle-centered kind of Maria stuff, we would kind of get away from this because we're playing a lot of, colorless artifacts. But because we're playing red and green things, these seem to be a good fit. We have this as like a duplicate. This is going to be like duplicating our dragons, so the Blade of Selves seems better in here than most because, of course, being able to tap a Blade of Selves for mana makes it much better, right? And it's basically kind of like a discount. So I think, obviously, Boros probably loves the hell out of this card, for reducing equip cost, but it works well, I think, here as well. So here's our removal suite. And you can see we just have all the sweetness here. Balefire Dragon we talked about. We have a lot of the staples here. And we didn't skimp. We just fit everything in. We definitely value removal here. So we have a lot of the staples. Obviously, Beast Within has to be one of my favorites. As like a 1-for-1 removal. It's just like a game-winning card. It can get rid of any, it can destroy any target permanent. In exchange, it just gives your opponent a 3/3 beast token at instant speed, so it's fantastic. Chaos Warp is similarly good like that, right? And you can even do weird things with your stuff with Chaos Warp if you know it's on the top of your library. So it is a weirder card, isn't it? Definitely a weirder one. You have Decimate here. This is just a good one where we can remove multiple things at once. So that's pretty nice. Haywire Might kind of works into that as well. Just a nice artifact we can tap for mana, or we can start removing things with it. Probably removing mostly the artifacts and non-creature artifacts and enchantments seem to be good. Hellkite Tyrant, I might have skipped over this one, but I think it's kind of like removal, but it's like possessing, right? So when this connects with an opponent, you'll gain control of all the artifacts that player controls, which is insane. In addition, if we control 20 or more artifacts, we just win the game. So it's like a win condition. It's really cool. And we play tons of artifacts in here. Hope of Garapor is kind of like a counterspell for our colors. I'd say it's mostly probably the closest thing to a counterspell for our colors, because you can connect with this, and if you have an opponent that looks like maybe they're kind of a slower deck, and maybe they might be playing some board wipes of some nature, maybe they have white in their color identity, then we can definitely set off the Hope of Garapor if we got it to a hot start and maybe slowed them down just enough. where even if they wipe the board the next turn, after they have to experience a Hope of Ghirapur not casting non-creature spells, maybe we took them down enough damage so that maybe we'll get in with our hasty guys a little bit later and finish the job. So that's that. We also have Cloth's Will, so that's very flavorful for us. It's just a sweet dragon removal spell. We can pay X into this and deal damage to the non-flying creatures on the battlefield, so we might take Mary out, but it might be worth it at the time. We might have a lot of dragons on the battlefield instead, which would be good, and maybe we want to deal with the ground. And if we control Mary as we do this, we can also destroy X target artifacts and enchantments, so it's just very good for us. Lightning Bolt seems good with Ragavan to kind of clear the way. In addition, Invasion will also help kind of clear the way as well for our Ragavan. We also have the Terror of the Peaks, of course, and Tyrant's Familiar. We went over those. Here's our extra combat, like win conditions. So having like double striking dragons just seems really strong. That's definitely a win condition for us. If we can give our dragons double strike, that's going to be really effective. And we'll definitely take the opponent out sooner than later. Hellkite Charger, working with a Scourge of Throne. This is just a match made in heaven, right? And just getting those extra combats, just kind of, looping in those combats. Additionally, the Twin Flame Tyrant just seems like a very extremely strong card, right? Kind of to the effect where if this gives double strike to all our dragons, if we have the Tarka and the Twin Flame Tyrant out at the same time, and we're like double striking and dealing double damage, it's got to be really good. And if we're draining with our other stuff, then it's going to be even better. Here's our card value. You can see we have no shortage of card value. We're just clicking on like all cylinders. So we even have like the Sweet Orb. It's just a nice one. Return of the Wild Speaker Rishkar. I even play like the Season of Gathering because I'm a big fan of it. Sylvan Library. This can actually take out enchantments too, so you can straddle it over to your removal, but it'll also just draw cards based on the highest creature power you have, creature on the battlefield for yourself. Sylvan Library, very good at drawing cards. The Great Henge, very good at doing this. The One Ring, of course, very good at this as well. Yeah, and of course this is our new guy on the street, right? So we'll tag him in there. He's probably going to go amongst, like, I would assume. Where does it fit? Where does the Stormscale Scion fit? I think it's just kind of like, a lord, right? It's just kind of gas. Let's see here what we got here. Dragon Lovers. It's definitely in the Dragon Lovers. There's no doubt. Let's just slide that in there real quick. It loves other dragons. It makes other dragons. Okay, so what else do we got to do? We got to get haste. So we got to make sure they're not sitting there. So we put in our deck lots of support for that. Lands that give haste to creatures. This artifact specifically, if you pay mana into a creature using this artifact, they will have haste, which is really nice. Doors of Durin will just see a card on the top of our library, and we can luckily reveal that if we have a nice dragon and just coming on the battlefield tapped and attacking. It's perfect. Dragon Tempest similarly is just that Scourge of Valkus on an enchantment that will also give all our flying dragons haste, all our flying creatures in general haste. And then as long as we keep on having other dragons, it's going to start acting as removal or damage to the face. It's really good. Probably our best card here. Definitely a good investment for you if you want to get into dragons. Here's the Lava Sphere Boots. And this is just going to give haste to one of our creatures. Low casting equip cost. It'll pay for its equip with Maria for very nice, right? Lightning Greaves is zero cost equip. Fantastic. Rabbit Barrier is a little harder. It's 1 red to equip, but it's still good. Rhythm of the Wild. 1 generic, 1 red, 1 green. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Very nice. And non-token creature you control have Riot. So they enter the battlefield with a choice of a 1/1 counter or haste. And of course, we're going to probably be using haste. And then Swiftfoot Boots. This is nice. Hexproof and haste. Oof. And we talked about Xenagos a little bit already. Let's just go ahead and just move this into fetch land very quickly. This is our duel. I like the tags. I like kind of showing you the dragons first and then putting all the tags on. I feel that's very cool. So there's that, and it looks like things have moved up a little because we still have dragon lovers to talk about. And those are up here now. I just put Cavern as like, it does love all our dragons. We just kind of name dragon there, and our dragons become uncounterable. Very good, right? Dragon Broodmother, A+, like we kind of talked about that. Going to be making all those dragons on our opponent's upkeep, one dragon at a time. Fantastic. Herald's Horn for looking at the top of our library upon our upkeep. And if we reveal that dragon on the top, because we're going to name dragon, we're going to put it into our hand. And also, we'll reduce our dragons by 1. And this taps for mana, so it's another crazy card for us. Lathless, Dragon Queen. We talked about that one already. Patrick Banner, a little bit buff for all our dragons. And also we'll add 1 mana of any color. That's very nice. Scourge of Alkus. It's going to definitely love to see other dragons because... I'll just read it. Whenever Scourge of Valkyrus or another dragon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals X damage to a target creature or player, where X is the number of dragons you control. So this card or another dragon enters. Stormscale Scion, and I believe that is just... Yeah, so if you have a good amount of dragons already on the battlefield and you drop this thing, it's still going to do some nice ping damage, right? To someone's creature or their face. Really good. Stormscale Scion. This thing says it's $28. I wonder how the price will change. It is a mythic rarity. I don't know if it's a $28 card. It doesn't look like it to me. I could be wrong, but I was thinking for constructed. I hope that people can get this, but it is a very fast format. Standard is very fast, but it does look very cool. It definitely does. Udvar Hellkite, of course. Dragon lover. And then we have like our mega value. I feel like I couldn't stop, end this video without talking about Smuggler's Surprise. And a content creator you should check out is Severn7. He does a lot of cool decks, and he's definitely grinding out there. I think we're kind of products of the CGB dojo, and we're just kind of floating in the YouTube universe. And he's doing very well. He puts in a lot of time into his videos. You can see there's a lot of quality there. And he loves this card. You should definitely check this one out. And it's just a great one. You can do this on your opponent's end step. I mean, that's what's interesting about this, because the instant speed, if you have 2 nice dragons in your hand, you can go ahead, pay the green, and then pay 4 generic more and additional green, so 6 total. Plop 2 dragons on the battlefield, on your opponent before your turn, and or in a defensive posture, and then when it comes to your turn, they won't have summoning sickness anymore. It's crazy. You might not have 2 dragons in your hand. You might have the ability to pay into addition. You might be able to addition to pay 8 into this and mill those 2 cards into your graveyard and maybe get lucky in there and return a creature or 2 to your hand, and then you have a good amount of creatures and 2 to release onto the battlefield. So we love this one, and it even has that hexproof indestructible thing. So that is also a very cool one. You have Turn Timber Symbiosis, which is a nice kind of tutoring thing. Can dig into your library and find a creature. I believe it's seven deep, right? Yeah, top 7 cards. So that's a nice one. And it can just be a land. And then, of course, Urza Saga is just nuts. We can find our Lava Spur Boots, Soul Ring with this. Just a completely whacked out card. All right. So I hope you enjoyed the deck. Let's kind of look at some of the gold fishing, because that's what we love to do. And honestly, this deck, this hand looks somewhat interesting. You can go into Commercial District on turn 1, and I would say that like having a turn 2 play with Maria that's an artifact isn't the worst. It probably gets a little bit better because this is not so artifact heavy. So this is actually looking not so bad. Like, maybe this one is semi-acceptable, but I also think that like this is also kind of a difficult say. We'll have to get used to the deck a little bit more. I would probably still mulligan this, even though you have a nice fetch land here for Commercial District, and we might be able to get into like another 1-mana artifact. That would be ideal. So if you were to play test this, you would definitely want with your commercial district to find a 1-mana artifact here, because when you go turn 3 with Maria, you're going to have 1 green available here, and then you're going to want to, you know, basically use this as a land and kind of exhaust that curve. So, you know, if you were to do this, you know, commercial district, we could look at the top, you know, maybe we're not going to be keeping the Scourge in this particular instance. And, you know, that's, you know, it's kind of sad in that way. Like, you know, our chances of going into some value here to tap this immediately for mana goes somewhat down, right? This is an interesting draw, Rhythm of the Wild. It's kind of a lot of value with Dragonhawk. We do have the Arena of Glory too. You probably go right here into Maria, just like this. You'll have 5 mana next turn. You could even exhaust this one. You can go into the arena and just have Dragonhawk kind of go off to a degree. Yeah, I don't think you'd be setting up for too much longer. We don't have any 0 mana cards in here either, but that would be kind of an interesting one. Like, for instance, you exhaust this one. That's 5 mana here because we exert, right? And then you're exiling this, and it's attacking already. Ooh, that would be a terrible card to exile, the old Gnawbone. So, yeah, these are very nice artifacts now, though. You know, these are just kind of right where you want to be, and Dragonhawk will be enabled. So, I mean, this is exerted, right? So this is gone for the next turn, but you still have these lands here. We can go into Incubator. These can start tapping themselves for mana. So they just kind of net mana along the way. So it's like basically seeing this as 2, seeing this as a 1. So if you tap this for mana 1, 2, 3, you'd have these 2 left over. 1, 2 for this. And now we have 2 mana additional here. So it's not the worst. I wonder what we would exile. Dragonlark or Tarka. Yeah. You might even like consider 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 for the Rhythm of the Wild. But I mean, the Howling Mine is so freaking good, isn't it? Oh, you know, probably the play actually was to go into like the, the Great Henge from here, huh? Probably would be a great choice from that start. So let's see. That's why like the 2-mana artifact start is kind of a trap. Just like 1 2-mana artifact from area, kind of a trap. You're really like testing the gods at that point. This one's this one looks a little more spicy though, because you have an Emerald Medallion and a Sylvan Library, which seems really cool. I would definitely probably play this one. Obviously nothing on turn 1. It's getting a little bit dicier now. I wonder if you just lead into the Sylvan and just kind of gas up your hand as much as possible. It's probably the right play. You know, get 3 looks at this, and I mean, we could still go into Maria too, right? Yeah, you probably just take all the damage here, right? And you just kind of moves us still away from Maria, doesn't it? Yeah, slightly, doesn't it? Yeah, because this will just throw us off. It doesn't reduce all the way. I still think you probably just lead with Maria. From goldfishing, I think we'll probably add like another elf here. Probably looks like we need a little more speed. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know we're for playing too many legendaries, you know. Paradise Mantle's always a good one though. I don't hate that, because that's, you could also impulse. One of my favorite ones for Maria is definitely like a Paradise Mantle. It's probably in the ramp section already. Yeah, it's ramp. Definitely tagged under ramp. So Paradise Mantle, that's a good one. That's a nice 0 drop for us too, right? And then it just turns Maria into a mana rock herself. And this also will tap for mana for Maria. So it's a nice one. Do we need like another elf too? I definitely value like haste here. I definitely do value it. And Rapid Battery is just nice because it can be tapped for mana in general. I feel like that's one of the better ones. I think Carnelian is pretty good. It's kind of on the slower side, isn't it, though? Yeah, I think it is on the slower side. And maybe, can we find another spot for like another elf, like a mystic? I think we probably definitely want an elvish mystic. We're at 101 now. We have played 37 lands. So a little greedy on the lands, but I feel like it's okay. I feel like all these are pretty decent. I was kind of wondering like how many do I need though, you know, especially with all the dragons. It's kind of tough. And, you know, I thought about the banner a little bit more. I like the banner for buffing our dragons, but we don't go so wide with them. It doesn't. The 1+1 might not be too important. I'd rather have a mystic on turn 1. I really would. This looks really interesting, actually. So, yeah, this is kind of like a very interesting hand. I just like these. Seeing this, and this is very explosive, right? This is very good with this. Ooh. Wow, a bird. That's really good. That's really good. I wonder if you just drop the mantle now and like don't be sad about it. Just do it. And this just easily Maria. Easily. So what happens with this, guys? I play Maria now. I wonder if I can zoom in just ever so slightly. Yeah, I can. So 1, 2, 3 for Maria, of course. Okay. Now Maria's ability, we can tap our non-tokens for mana. So we would go ahead and tap this for mana and equip Maria. So we just go ahead and slide that under. And we did that all on turn 2. It's fantastic. So virtually now you want to consider Maria as a mana rock with a Paradise Mantle. So 1, 2, 3. This is a God draw. Absolute God draw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 mana on turn 2. That's really good. That's really, really hot. And then we go into our next turn. Now we'll have 6. We have a Dragon Broodmother here. That's pretty whacked out, isn't it? And a Blade of Selves. I mean, the Blade of Selves won't mean too much, but we do have a Dragon Tempest as well. I mean, we could go like full, you know, we can create a turn 4 where our Dragon Brother is basically protected by like a Swiftfoot Boots. We could basically spew our hand with a 6 mana. We could go any combination of, like, for instance, we probably want to draw with the One Ring if we do this. Because if we just have 6, this would take all our mana. We just exhaust it. It could get removed. That would be terrible. That would be a bad result. But if we have 6 mana here, for instance, we could, cast the ring. We could cast the boots as well. We could choose to draw with the ring, which we probably would want to do, right? So cast ring 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have 2 mana left over. have the boots here, then we can go ahead and also equip Maria as well. And now we have this just really nice texture here of good stuff, right? You have your bird, you have your One Ring, you have your Hexproof Maria, and your Paradise Mantle. We draw with a ring. Oh god, a Stormscale Scion. We're going to draw for turn, or now we go to our turn, draw the ring again, get some more cards. Oh my dear heavens, it's like really nuts. I'm just kind of curious if we have enough mana here. We just did draw with the ring, right? So we wouldn't have that mana available. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 mana available, huh? Seven mana, eh? I kind of was like looking for a land on that. If we had 8, we can drop our last march. That would have been pretty sweet, huh? Yeah, that would have been really cool. But at the very least, let's see. This is 5? No, that is 6. I was thinking we kind of want to get the Tempest down, don't we, right? Anyways, yeah, man, if we just had one more mana from that, we could drop a Tempest here, drop the Dragon Broodmother and start draining. But probably we can even just get the Stormscale Scion going. Seems pretty good too. You could, with that 7 mana, you could drop your Blade of Selves. That would tap for an additional mana here. You could do the Scion as well. Have a couple dragons on the battlefield. Probably we want to save it. We could have some patience here. I feel like we could, a fine choice would be going like Dragon Tempest into Goldspan, for that 7 mana, and then getting really, really busy with a Goldspan and really generating enough mana, and then basically dropping like all this stuff at once would be pretty cool. Yeah, overall, the Tempest works really well with all these cards. These for the Stormscale Scion, it's going to see additional dragons enter. Dragon Broodmother is going to see that as well and make more dragons and start draining the opponents. And likely, we're probably just going to last march, and draw like a decent amount of cards and drop some more creatures off with that ring draw, and probably not be too bad, not sad about it. We won't get the Storm, but we'll just get like a lot of creatures on the battlefield at once. So, and a lot of dragons at once. And they'd all have haste. So, yeah, I think it's fine. That was a really hot start. So, obviously, the bird was an amazing draw. So, I hope you enjoyed this Maria Dragon deck today. Go check it out on my Mox Field. Thanks for joining me today. I'll have a really cool thumbnail. Goodbye.